We're going to go ahead and get started with our State of Advising panel. As Joy mentioned, we have a wide variety of institutions that are participating and represented here at the conference, and we all have our own challenges. So through this panel, we hope to get a sense of how advising is happening now and how it has changed across our state. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists. So first we have Nancy Parks, the Associate Provost for Student Services, as well as the Director of Advising and Assessment and Coordinator of the Board of Governors AAS degree at Pierpont Community and Technical College. Next up, we have Christine Reich, the Director of Advising from Shepherd University. Joy Carr, the Director of University Advising for West Virginia University, and she's also the Interim West Virginia State Liaison for NACADA Region 3. Our final panelist is Pamela Stevens, the Assistant Provost for Advising and Retention Initiatives at Fairmont State University. So I'll go ahead and kick off the first question for our panel. This one is going to be for everyone on the panel. So first question, here it is. How would you describe the advising community at your institution? Are you centralized, decentralized, primary role advisors, faculty advisors, etc.?
I'll go first. I'll kick us off. So I learned this term at a national conference, and I've been using it everywhere ever since. All three of our campuses at WVU are aggressively decentralized. So basically we have primary role advisors and faculty advisors. Some of our programs are a little more centralized than others, so they may have a director of advising, people who specialize in retention, special populations of students. Some programs only have one advisor who's expected to handle all of that. So, and honestly, sometimes it's difficult to get an actual number of total advisors. So if I don't actually know how many advisors we have, and that's partially because some of our job titles are shared with other units. So just because you might go in the system as a program coordinator, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily an academic advisor. So bringing us all together can be a little bit of a challenge.
And I want to interrupt for 1 second. I forgot to mention Sarah Davis is on our panel also. And Sarah is the Director of Undergraduate Advising at Marshall University. Sorry about that, Sarah.
That's okay. I don't mind. I'll take it away from now after the intro for the next question. This is a term also that I heard somewhere else. We are centralized decentrally. So we have a leadership group that oversees all advising on campus, including myself. And then we have an advising council that works together from all of our academic advising units, but each unit still operates independently within their college. So their day-to-day duties are within their college. So each college operates independently while we have the centralized oversight. So we can ensure quality and consistency across all units while each unit still has their own independence. It was a little tricky whenever we got started, but it's going really well now. And I think this model is really great at our university. We have 26 staff advisors and then 27 staff advisors actually. And then we have advisors in our athletic department. We have student support advisors. We have faculty advisors as well. So we have a wide range here on campus.
I can go next. At Shepherd, we have the majority is faculty advising, but we do, oh, can you hear me? We do also have 3 now professional advisors for first and second year students for 3 of our different schools, the School of Nursing, College of Business, and the College of STEM. And then we have the Advising Assistance Center with myself and the career advisor, who are very generalists. So we kind of a very small kind of professional advising staff, and the majority is done by faculty advising.
Okay, Nancy or Pamela, do you want to share?
Thank you, Joy. So sorry. I used to work with Dee Cobb a little bit, and she's probably thinking, is Nancy sick? Because we can't shut her up and she's not talking, and I couldn't couldn't get my mute unmuted, and I'm sending some people the link as we speak. First of all, I'm really envious of everybody's backgrounds. You've really taken the time. Joy, your mountains are beautiful. I look like I'm stuck in an interrogation room at a police station. When you offered all of those advising options, it was kind of like, yes, all of the above. We're very, we're a small school, fewer than 2,000 students. And like a lot of community colleges, students come to us for a program, not necessarily the total, kind of like college experience as we think about it. So when they're new, when they come through a general advising center, which is a term that we use very liberally because we have one full-time academic advisor for the institution, as well as myself in my position. And then we've got some people also in student services who in heavier student times, like summer registration and things, will pitch in with advising. Most of our decentralized, or what we might call program satellite advising, is done more intently in our health sciences programs, because even though Pierpont is a guaranteed admissions institution, some of the health sciences programs remain competitive selective admission. So the more intense advising for academic programs happens inside the departments. But most of the people funnel through just the general advising center when they first come to college.
So it looks like Fairmont State may be having some technical issues. So Kayla, if you want to move us on, we'll grab Pamela when she comes into the meeting.
Sure. All right. So the next question for the panel is, what is the average advising load at your institution, and how has that changed in the past few years?
I'll start that one off. So that varies by person, right? A primary role advisor can have as many as 250 to 300 students, depending on what that major is. Or other advisors may deal with every single major that they have, and it may not be that high. In the past few years, I think we've seen more growth toward primary role advisors, particularly a student success coordinator who can handle some of the outreach that we hope to do to retain students and check on them when they have, for example, midterm grades that come in and things like that. And I think that the load has not only changed, but the expectation of what advisors are supposed to be doing has also changed as well. We've always known advising is more than just picking classes. We have, intense conversations with students sometimes. But I think now more than ever, we're expected to be on the front lines of student outreach about all kinds of things, not just grade alerts, but failure to enroll in a timely fashion and all kinds of other issues. And that's really challenging to do when you're already trying to get hundreds of people advised by the time their registration window opens. So I would say the load varies depending on which campus you're on and what major you're with and how they have advising set up. But I think the expectation of what you're supposed to do with those students is what's common to us all.
Thanks, Joy. I think that's very similar to what we have going on here at Marshall. We have, if you average what everybody has, it comes to about 200 students each. But when you look at the list, there are some with fewer, significantly fewer, and some with a lot more. We have some advisors at 350, some at 300, and the caseload is just unbearable at times. So you're right, no matter if you have 65 advisees or 200 or 300, the expectation is the same for every student. So our loads do vary by college, and it's constantly at the forefront of conversations. Can we expand? Can we expand? But alongside those conversations are not just can we add more positions, but can we add more duties? Can we add more work? Can we add this thing to what we're doing? So that's more about what the next question leads into. But yeah, so our loads vary by unit, by major, by the amount of advisors within each program and college. But our average sits around 200. Our goal is 225 or less. So that is the goal we're constantly working towards.
Ours also varies at Shepherd. There seem to be much smaller because we are a smaller school, but faculty has very deranging faculty advising loads depending on the major. Our professional advisors probably have, I believe, between like 120 to 150 each. They advise first and second year or just first year students in those majors. So we definitely have much smaller loads, but I think we are seeing kind of the same things of, what advising entails and what we are expected to do as far as outreach and, helping the students and things like that. So I do think similarities, but we do have smaller loads here at Shepherd, smaller school.
All right, moving to our next question. What are the biggest challenges for your institution in regards to advising in recent years, or what are some challenges ahead that you see?
I think we could all say COVID all at the same time has certainly changed the way that we advise and the kinds of conversations. It's heightened, I think. Students have always had financial difficulties. They've always had emotional, transitional issues, but I think COVID has really highlighted some of those things and made them sharper. We also know that students had very uneven learning experiences in junior high, high school, and they've certainly brought that into their freshman experiences on. We have more resources for students than we ever have had before, but they tell us that they don't know what those are, or that they know that they're out there, but it's too overwhelming to access all of those things. And I mean, very personal to our institution, it will come as no surprise to anyone that we're going through academic transformation, and that has made things complicated on the advisory, to say the least. Students are looking to advisors for answers, and we just don't know exactly yet how their academic experiences will be affected. They're worried, some of them, even if their programs are not affected, right? And that's not all of them, of course, but enough so that advisors are dealing with the questions every day. And it's a very difficult thing to do, to try to reassure students when you might also be anxious about what's happening and not have many of those answers.
Yeah, thanks, Joy. I feel for you guys, that's a bigger challenge than what I'm about to list, because that uncertainty can weigh pretty heavy on a student's mind, I'm sure, as well as yours. One of the things that I wrote out as one of the biggest challenges for our institution here at Marshall is that as we've seen a shift in our advising style and more holistic and more case management style advising, that we have to know all of these things and do all of these referrals and really maximize our time with students, the outside perception of advising has remained as course schedulers. So although we're going through this evolution and changes in our practice and what we're doing with students, the perception people have of academic advisors is that our primary role is course scheduling. Now, of course, that is a major role and timeline to degree and keeping on students on track, but our role has expanded substantially. And part of the biggest challenge that I think we're seeing is making sure that other people know all the other things that we're doing now and understand the impact of academic advising outside of course scheduling.
Mm-hmm. This is Nancy from Pierpont. I've been having trouble with my buttons for some reason. We're getting, in answer, this kind of is an answer also to the previous question. Our advising load is kind of undetermined because we have so few people. It's kind of like everybody as they come in until they get portioned off to their appropriate advisors, and advisors who are in very small programs would ordinarily have, of course, have a very small advising load. So we're looking to some ways to kind of like combine for parity the numbers in the students that advisors get, to maybe put some light groups together. But what I've been noticing, and my background is in like developmental education in first year and at risk, and I've just noticed that students come to college sometimes with less information than they have ever come before. Like I thought I knew everything that they didn't know and could, prepare for. And then sometimes I'll get a question or they'll encounter something that they'll see something in a completely different way, a novel way that they have completely misunderstood, that I never predicted. So we're trying to be mindful of that, of the things that students point out to us, that they're very unprepared. Not that they can't be successful, but that we've got to be mindful of all the things that they don't know as we work harder and harder to recruit more first generation students or at-risk students and make college attractive in this time of national conversations where people are kind of dissing higher ed. We have to be mindful that we give them as much information as they need in real time that they understand. And it's more intrusive and prescriptive sometimes than we might like, but for their own survival, just to stay on top of things, we need to be mindful of what they don't know and build that into the whole advising session. Like a student was waiting recently for his online instructor to notify him as to when the class would start. Three weeks in, it was his only online class. And for some reason, we have a TBA notation on our schedules that they print out, and I'm not quite sure why. So I'm going to try to see if we can have that removed, because that kid knew that TBA meant to be announced. So he was waiting, and I felt so bad for him, and he was embarrassed. And I said, no, this is really, you had every right to think that. This is your only online class. So then we negotiated that conversation with the faculty to allow him to get in and go in and make up some missed work. But it's just always trying to stay on top of what they don't know to address that, so they're not embarrassed and they don't get behind unintentionally.
I would definitely agree with that. I actually had a student email me because the professor hadn't let them know where the class was, and to kind of have to show them, this is on the class schedule, this is in your Rail account, this is your responsibility to find this. He came the first day and said the professor didn't email me to tell me where the class was going to be, and they said, well, that's not going to happen. And so yeah, I think you're right. There is a lot of things that they are really coming in not knowing, that do kind of surprise me every day. I think we are also at Shepherd have been experiencing a little bit of academic restructuring, which I think has been a challenge for the students, kind of combining of departments and shifting of department chairs. Faculty, I think, has been expected in general to take on more in addition to their advising loads. So I think that's been kind of a challenge for them as well, that we've kind of put on them. And I think we are, hoping, with the shift into some of the professional advisors, has been a way to kind of help that, but we're still really not, every school does not have one. It's still kind of very hit or miss. So I think those are definitely some of the, kind of similar challenges that we're facing here at Shepherd. A lot of students working more. So even just that basic level of scheduling, of course, which we know it's not just scheduling, but even that basic kind of a lot of times takes up more time, because students have very specific demands on when they want to be able to take classes and when they can take classes. So sometimes that even takes more time than we'd hoped. And yet we know that advising is so much more than that, but even that's become a little bit of a challenge. So
yeah, and I forgot that when they were if these new freshmen were in high school, their classes by Zoom were in real time.
Yeah.
So they were just and that took me a while to figure out that they were expecting it in real time to be announced. They were like, is it at 8 or is it 9:30?
right.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, well, shame on us for not thinking about that beforehand. But it's all, and we in the past few years, we created an early alert office where students can self-refer or faculty can refer to a centralized office. Again, we're all a lot of one person offices to just express a concern that they don't even have to really identify exactly. And it could be the student's always late to class, or the student falls asleep halfway through, anything. And then the early alert staff reaches out to that student and has a meeting. And then she kind of becomes their unofficial complimentary advisor throughout the term, and then gets them kind of like back on their feet. And that's really an interesting position, because that also gives us information that not only that the students share and the faculty share, but it helps alert us to some things that might be going on in the classroom that we didn't know about, where we could also help the faculty.
So I think I see our Fairmont colleagues.
Hey, Pam.
So I don't know, Pam, I don't know how much you've gotten to hear so far, but do you want to take a minute and tell us a bit about advising, the context for advising at your university and some of your challenges and things like that?
So at Fairmont State, the advising organizational structure has changed over the previous, I'd say, 5 or 6 years drastically. And earlier in the semester, actually, described this to someone. I said I didn't know if to describe it as everybody filling a different part of the elephant and trying to explain the elephant, or if it was a tangled ball of Christmas lights. And then I think I told somebody it's an elephant in a ball of Christmas lights. So we have taken what we used to have as a structure, and which had grown organically from a centralized advising center. And then it had migrated into each academic area and fulfilled the needs of the deans and chairs. So it was primarily an academic advising position that they hired, but then about maybe 5% of what the, we call them ASCs now, academic success coordinators. But back then we just called them advisors. But usually only about 5% of what they did was possibly outreach and going to recruiting events. Most of what they did was focus 100% on advising. And then through the years and different leadership changes, there was a decision to move it back to a centralized model. And they had the ASCs now reporting to one central location within the advising center. But there was also still kind of a dual reporting structure where the deans were very involved. So it did get kind of confusing because when you're not in your office and you're sharing the office area with the dean, they need to know you're not there, even if your supervisor is in a completely different building. And so right now we still have, well, we've now moved the ASCs back to their academic deans as their supervisors, but we still do have various models, different models within the academic disciplines. And part of what we're going to be working on over the next year is trying to determine which academic organizational structure actually does work best for us. What complicates things too is that we now have some initiatives through student services where we have a lot of overlap with student service initiatives and plans. So we're trying to ensure that we're not duplicating what they're doing, but that what they're doing and what we're doing is complementary. So we're all working to spread everything out and get everything in order.
All right, so we're to our last question before the Q&A kind of. So kind of to wrap up the panel, how would you say advisors can move the needle to pursue professional growth on their campus?
I'm happy to start this one. I love this question. I've only been in my role a little over a year, but one thing that I've noticed immediately is that what we do is not always apparent to other people, even if we are on campus doing it for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, all year long. Our colleagues, I don't think our colleagues know the depth of what we do, what tools we do or don't have access to, why we need those tools, that piece of information, that sort of thing. I think we have, and not just in the state, but across the nation, I think we have a narrative issue. We don't tell our own stories. We do amazing work, and advisors are some of the most humble people I've ever met in my life. I've read some incredible award packets just to have those advisors say, well, I just don't know if it's good enough to submit for an award. They don't like being in the spotlight typically, but spotlighting our work is one of the best ways that we generate buy-in for better professional development experiences, more money, tools, opportunities, that sort of thing. So I think we have to get braver about telling our stories. We do a really good job of telling our students' stories, but I think we need to take those same skills and tell the stories of our coworkers, our own stories, because I think that's how we move the needle with what we need for advising.
Yeah, I'll second that. A couple of things that I wrote down are submit for awards and submit presentation material. So, make sure that you are making a name for yourself, that whenever NACADA or other opportunities come around, that you don't just sit back and let them pass, that you jump on those, that if you are in a leadership position, nominate 6, 7, 8 of your people that are standout advisors on your campus. Get a gathering going for suggesting presentation ideas. Your presentation might be selected as one of like the region favorites. You can get more recognition that way. I also said seek administrative support. We are very lucky here that our provost and associate provost are big NACADA supporters. So that allows all staff, professional advisors on campus to have NACADA memberships. So since we are all NACADA members, that is a benefit for us. And that conversation actually wasn't very hard because they already knew about it. They already wanted that on us. So I just had to seek approval and funding for that because you cannot pay that out of state funds. So we had to do just a few conversations, and once they were behind it, now then it's our job to follow through with that, to follow through with giving presentations, doing the travel arrangements, making sure that we have a presence there. And then the other element that I think is important is build your own. We have built our own professional opportunities out on campus. We have a monthly professional development opportunity. It could be a training and development opportunity. It could be a team building opportunity. We just expanded our monthly meetings to also include advisor well-being. So build your own. We have been running ours now for 2 full academic years, and it's fantastic. And there's a lot of good buy-in. And then we have our own internal training and development and personal growth opportunities here on campus, and it allows us to go together to the next step at regional or national.
A couple things that I would be good for everyone. We're thinking here about maybe starting an academic advising council to get those faculty who are really interested in academic advising together on a monthly basis for a reading and a discussion. Some people are advisors, they have advisees assigned, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're really invested in advising. And if we could get those people who are invested in advising to meet and read and discussion, maybe a book club or something. But something for a more global professional development for advisors is, if you're not already, and I know people are members of professional organizations like NACADA, I'd get really more involved with your institutional accreditor. I think we all have Higher Learning Commission as our accreditor. They're always seeking out peer reviewers to go and visit other colleges. Academic advising is a big part of criterion 3. If you're familiar with the assurance argument, and they provide peer reviewer training, and you could go then and visit other colleges in your capacity as an academic advisor to see how others do it, and just kind of like promote your own school and your own mission, and just go to the Higher Learning Commission. I don't know if I've seen a lot from academic advising. Sometimes that's more of a junket for like administrators, but I think it should really be opened up, and more people should participate. But I would strongly encourage you, if you've not considered it, look into becoming a peer reviewer with the Higher Learning Commission, and that criterion 3 could really be your specialty, because that's all about support services, of which academic advising would be a huge chunk.
Nancy, we have an academic advising council at WVU, and it's the best things ever.
Okay, excellent.
It includes people who are advising adjacent. So someone from admissions sits in, someone from student financial services.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to just be all faculty. Yeah.
And it just gives you so much more insight into the work that you do when you have those other partners at the table.
It also just kind of gives you an idea after who shows up as to who's interested in it. Yeah.
And we also have an advising council at Fairmont State. We call it the Fairmont Advising Network, FAN. So we do have two separate meetings generally through the month. We have the FAN members, just the core members, so we can talk about things as a group. But then we also have the open one where you're saying like with the advising adjacent folks. And we invite them to discuss any issues that they have or that we have going on that will affect one or the other.
Well, I can't start one now, Pam, until I get a better acronym than you have. FAN, that one's gonna be pretty hard to beat.
Well, sometimes they call it Falcon Advising Network too, but it really stands for Fairmont.
All right, okay.
Nancy's can be Pam.
All right, so I think that kind of wraps up our formal questions that we had, for today. So we have a few minutes left before we move on to our next session. So if anybody has any questions, that you would like to ask our panelists, please feel free to raise your hand and just when we do call on you, identify your name and the institution you represent, if you wouldn't mind. So I'll go ahead and open the floor for questions.
We used to also, and I've been in and out of advising, but we used to also give an Excellence in Advising Award every year. And it was the only faculty award, it was for faculty advising, it was the only faculty award that had to come solely from a student nomination. It was student driven. Nobody could, nobody's boss could submit a portfolio on behalf of somebody to get a promotion or something. It was totally student driven. And the students really like that. Once they were told, listen, you've got a chance now to nominate your advisor. This is the only award they get that comes straight from you. Kind of like a People's Choice Award.
Great. It looks like Rhonda Black has her hand raised.
Hi, Kayla. Hi, this is Rhonda Black. I'm the Director of First Year Experience for the Center for Learning, Advising, and Student Success here at West Virginia University. And first and foremost, I just want to send a shout out to all of you. I rely on advisors in my position. Our office coordinates our first year seminar, and I serve as a consultant to our campus at large for the first year seminar. And I rely heavily on advisors and what they do. And the way that we have set it up here at WVU, at least in our area of the Center for Learning, Advising, and Student Success, is we call it a success team. So we do have advisors who serve as first year seminar instructors, but sometimes we have other people teaching first year seminar. We partner with our advisors. We bring advisors into the classroom. So I would highly recommend, if that's something that you haven't done or not doing or want to expand upon, it is a tremendous partnership, especially when you're talking about finding students who are in need of other resources, who might be showing some red flags. We see them in the classroom. We can consult with advisors, and we can really provide that holistic intervention that needs to happen. So, but my main purpose is to thank you all for everything that you do, because it is incredible. And as Joy said, I think that sometimes other people don't know what it is that you're doing, but I see you and you're doing fabulous work.
Thanks, Rhonda. So we do have one question that came in our Q&A from Keith Alexander, and that question was, do you advise international students, and what particular challenges and resources do you have for this?
So I'll start with that one. We definitely advise international students at WVU. One support that we have for them, which I think is really critical, is our International Students and Scholars Services team. And with students from another country, sometimes in advising, they can have limited options that a domestic student doesn't have. One example would be students who need to change their major because they're not making progress in that major, or maybe they can't continue because they've tried calculus, not to pick on calculus, but maybe they've tried calculus too many times and their institution won't let them do it anymore, right? Well, sometimes their sponsoring agency won't let them change their major unless there's actually another open major for them to slot into. So for an international student, at least on our campus, sometimes changing a major means you can't go to school anymore. So those conversations tend to be much more heightened, and they have ramifications for a student's visa and things of that. Even figuring out that for some students, they can't take a certain number of online classes or any online classes, issues that you don't even think about necessarily because they're not necessarily something that's come up with a domestic student. So I know our global affairs folks have been really pivotal in helping us figure out the specific advising needs of students. And so with that, again, another example of an advising adjacent office, right?
Pierpont can't sponsor student visas, but we still get international students at times. And sometimes that can be a completely different advising experience, because one boy who used to come to the advising center, on some occasions, the whole family came. Everybody came. Everybody came. The dad, the mom, the little brother, I think, was brought along to to make the older brother the cautionary tale. Like, don't be like him. And it was really, you think of you've got 6 people trailing the students, and immediately comes to your head is FERPA. And I'm like, you say to the boy, I assume it's okay with you that they're all here. Is that okay that they're asking questions on your behalf? And the father looked at me like, well, of course it's okay that we're here. And the boy just shrugged and was like, he's my ride. Yeah, he's my ride. He's the checkbook. Yeah, just indulge him. I don't think he ended up graduating. He's doing fine in a field totally unlike what his father wanted him to do when he was in college. But it can just be culturally a little different, just depending on the student and their situation.
I think Mark Schraff has his hand raised.
I do. Hi, I'm the Academic Affairs Coordinator at WVU for the Department of Chemistry. I advise all the undergrads, and because chemistry is such a heavy service department, I wanted to ask if other advisors, if there's an awareness out there that part of my job, especially around registration time, is greatly expanded, not simply in meeting with all of my students, but helping the rest of the campus navigate registration issues. And I've heard literally that there's, what does he have to do over the summer? Which is kind of frustrating because I'm on it every single day, because there are issues every single day. And just wanted to ask if this is de rigueur, and how, other than listing the number of emails and phone calls that you respond to, how that message can be pushed up the line so that people are aware of that particular job that's pretty important, because it really reflects on the department as a whole and the attitudes therein. Thanks.
Are you basically asking other colleges and schools besides WVU if they have advisors who do that kind of like scheduling work and responding to students' emails about things like particular courses that they can't get in, that sort of thing? Like what?
Yeah, I mean, I think at Marshall, that rigor is definitely there. We know whenever we are planning out things for the semester, we don't plan anything around registration time, because like you said, the peak is so high, and we use different systems to track things, and you can see the peak is just off the charts during the time. The rigor is there, and part of what you said, how do you get other people to notice, is through shared advising council, is through sharing, I think, at your associate dean's council, is through sharing those things. If you have a chance to talk with your provost, or through, we did like a presentation with our board of governors about it, that advising is very demanding, that we're not off during the summer, right? People do say that, oh, like you get the summer off. No, summer is wild because we have orientation and all the new students. It's no, the low time actually happens during the semester. But yeah, no, the rigor is there. I think that you're preaching to the choir here, right? We know, we see your efforts and we understand them because we do them too. And yeah, I think that is probably a shared experience at everybody, every university and college and CTC that's on the call today, that, we go full sail during registration time, in particular with our students. And like you said, sometimes it's other students, not even our own advisees. We're helping the campus. We're talking to, and because sometimes those calls and those emails and those conversations are also with other people who are trying to help the students. You might be responding to a staff member, you might be responding to the registrar's office, or you might be responding to this other community person on campus instead of just the students. But yeah, I think that's a shared experience, and a shared experience of moving that up the line, that other people can see the amount of rigor that goes into it.
All right.
I
Well,
think, and Mark, you're a faculty member?
I am.
You're a faculty member. So what we do, and we make a list, the advising people and the people who work registration in the summer. And we're very mindful of which faculty are 9-month employees, 10-month employees, 11-month, or the full year. And then we will seek their help during the months that they are in on contract. And then at the end of the summer, we try to reward them in some way. And I don't mean with cash, that would be nice to don't, but recognize them. An official thank you letter that they can put in a PNG file, or a certificate, or something that we seek out the provost signature to acknowledge that in some way. And it does sound very de rigueur for you that it's all the time. And I can think of faculty right now who, whether they're on contract or not, do it on a daily basis. And then some that you want to be more mindful of their contract. And one way maybe to get people to know what you're doing, because I think it is important, is I'm a big fan of the handout. And if there are like frequently asked questions that you could answer on a handout and attach that to your email signature or something, before I answer you might want to read or watch this to have your question answered. That helps them, and that also gets Mark Schraff, chemistry faculty, out there and about, that people can say, well, I learned this because Dr. Schraff made this handout and put it with this automatic reply.
all right. So unfortunately, we're going to have to cut the panel off to move on to our next presentation. But thanks everybody for such a lively discussion. And it was great to hear, how things are happening across the state. So thank you to all of our panelists for their time and insights today.